Let's talk about something. All right, friends, welcome back to No Other Life, Season 2, Episode 10. You've had 3/4 of these discussions already, and you're here for more, so let's get into it. It's a big episode. Today we're going to be talking about confusing presentations that are unintentional between realms. And if any of those words don't make sense to you, you got to go back and hear episode 9. But in this particular case, we're going to be saying, why is it that as we are trying to improve ourselves, we're trying to do better, be honest about who we are, why would we say something that's different than what we mean to say? And there's at least 3 reasons. The first of which is that it's possible that among these realms that you inhabit, you simply don't care as much about one of them. And so you might be one particular person that presents in a particular way when you're playing with your friends on the weekend, games or sports, or just kicking back at a restaurant. And that's very different than the person that is attending to something at the office, some after office club where you're supposed to go and continue to have fun with your colleagues, and you're just not into it. The second is that you might present differently in a different realm simply because of time and place. So let's say that proximally you might like the people that you're working with during the day, but at that end of the day, all you can see is your bed, and it's like 50 miles away. That's not good. Or temporally speaking, maybe you used to like it, but you kind of evolved. You've changed, or the group has changed, and you're just not feeling it anymore. Likewise, it could be a case where at a particular time of day that particular realm and audience gets to see you, you're a different person. It could be, as in my case, because of a disease and the medicine and all those things coming together to give you on and off periods. And you work really hard to be polite and kind and nice, but you're exhausted at the end of the day. And it's really just because of those external circumstances. Whereas if you, for some reason, had that same realm of people, that audience, get to see you present at 10 in the morning instead of 10 at night, you might have a very different circumstance for them. Now, the third one concerns something that we haven't spoken about lately or at all yet. It's called confidence. I've talked before about how Howard Thurman says that you shouldn't ask the world what the world needs. You should instead ask yourself what makes you come alive, because what the world truly needs is people who have come alive. And if we were to have that as our guide in a truly optimal fashion, it's not that we would see our life path before us and then go live it. That's super boring. What it would mean to me is that we would have an idea in the distance about what it is that we expect for our life. And that at each one of the nodes on our lightning bolt DPN, we would come back to say, wait a minute, I'm going to make this choice based on love, based on passion, based on what makes me come alive. And once I have made that change, I'm going to feel good about it. And I might zigzag so far afield that my end has nothing to do with my initial end that I had hoped for, but I'm cool with it. I like what I've done. And so that is the way that I look at this quote. and we would be living and acting in love, and we would be putting ourselves first. There's many a proverb that guides us toward this realization that we should be thinking about ourselves and loving ourselves before we have any hope of helping or loving others. We are told to take the plank out of our own eye before we can deal with the splinter in our neighbors. We have to put on our own gas mask before we tend to any of the vulnerable people around us, children, the elderly. We're told that we need to stand for something so we don't fall for anything. And, of course, we need to walk before we can run. So each one of these implies a progression that, if executed correctly, will in fact reduce the friction that impedes or harbors clear communication. But there's something else that makes us come to life, and we haven't talked about it yet. We have spent a good deal of time talking about this elevator pitch yielding or leading to this inventory of characteristics, qualities, and traits that we are so proud of. And it's been a good ride, but now we got to add something else to that. And this is the reason, because we spring to action during emergent situations. And toward the end of season 1, you can dig it out, I talked about emergent situations as being ones in which the stimulus immediately becomes a catalyst, leapfrogs over a practically non-existent adjustment phase, and we're immediately into a new beginning. And this could be an accident that causes your life to change in a heartbeat. It could be the reading of the lottery numbers on the television on the evening. Any one of these will be something that immediately change your life, and you have to reckon with it for what you might call good or bad. Now let's think about a sample emergent situation that's far less life-changing than what I just described. Now in this particular case, you're sitting out in an Adirondack chair in your yard, and you're starting to doze off a little bit. It's a perfect afternoon, when all of a sudden you feel a little something. You look down, and there's an ant on your knee, and you freak out. You're not afraid of ants, but you just go nuts. You flick it off. You might go, woo, and you jump up. Maybe you are afraid of ants, it turns out. But you end up like in a tree. You're so disoriented. And what happens is that you have come alive, quite literally. You're there falling asleep, and you come alive. Now, does that suggest to us that that emergent situation is any more significant, less significant than the things that Thurman is probably talking about, which are your passions, your hobbies, and then the people that you want to spend your time with, hold most dear? No, not necessarily, but it does mean that you need to include it, because anything that makes you come alive, like that issue with the ant in the chair, is a big thing. Now, this is something that I guess maybe you're afraid of, an ant. And that's fine. We're all afraid of something. Many of them are physical. Many of them are somewhat unlikely to happen, but we're still scared of them. And I think when we think about the word scared versus fear versus afraid, they all might feel a little different. And I've put in some thought. And it feels to me like the ant is something you might be scared of. But rationally speaking, you know that it's just an ant. And there is something that I'm just as upset about, and rationally I know that that's the case. But what you're really afeared of is something maybe intangible. So if you ask yourself in the toddler style, why? Why are you jumping out of your chair? Well, you got startled. So maybe you're afraid of being startled. You could also be afraid of being alone or having financial dependency or food insecurities. There's a variety of things that you could be very concerned about. And that's why those fears need to be accounted for when we take our inventory. Because if you don't account for them, what are you going to do? Honestly, what will be the circumstance here? You are going to not account for it with those whom you hold dear, and they'll be operating off of an understanding of all of those positive things that you have used in your inventory, and they'll see you up in the tree, and they'll say, "Well, I thought this guy was going to be sleeping right now, having a nice afternoon, relaxing, but he's up in a tree. He's so fickle. You never know." And they're going to go off in this spiral, maybe even a little irked by you. But that's simply because you have not been real enough with yourself to be real with them and say, "Look, there was an ant. I know I overreacted, but will you please help me out of this tree and check the path ahead of me? And would you mind getting the leaf blower out so I can sit in that chair again?" I think that it's particularly important that we recognize these fears as part of our inventory of these heirlooms that we're talking about, because in the true nature of a literal heirloom, it's something that you hand down generation after generation. And you're probably proud of it. You're probably take great pleasure in owning this, but it's with you. It's something that you might not be proud of, and someone gave it to you, and you're like, "Oh, I know this is supposed to stay in the family, but come on, it's so ugly." So in this particular case, this is a part of you as well. And some of those things in your inventory you're very proud of, and in others you're not. But you still need to reckon with them. You still need to be aware of what's going on there. So an heirloom is something that is a part of you that you may be handed, you may inherit it, although not necessarily by birthright, and you emit it. If you think about this, I was made aware the other day of this, theory that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around most. And if that be the case, literally, we're talking about realms here. And so if this realm has an audience that is kind and thoughtful and would do anything for each other, but this realm is backstabby and snipey, and you find yourself in each one, you either are going to be a two-face and playing both sides, or you're going to be extremely uncomfortable in one of them. And so when these realms end up colliding with each other, this might be one of those reasons in my initial question of this episode of why would you do something different than what you say based on the realm? It could be that you just don't care about one as much, or it doesn't feel like you. So you need to be thinking, what is the real you? What is the real you? And once you have figured that out, again, sometimes you need to toe the line and just live with it, even if you don't want to be a part of whatever action is going on. But at least be aware that for this time, right now, I need to do my best to fit in. And I'm not going to be dishonest with myself. I'm not going to be an imposter. I'll be polite and I'll make it through. And again, this may lead you to an epiphany that says the culture of that realm, of that audience, is not for me. Whether or not it ever was is irrelevant at this point, but be aware of it. So this third or so of this series is really all about realizing and asking those questions to say to yourself, am I doing what is honest with myself? And once you know the answer to a question like that, you will feel differently. You will feel that you are closer to who you're trying to be, and you will just generally be able to help those around you more. Now, I told you we're going to be talking about community in season 3, and for the time being, this is all about us as individuals seeing ourselves, but still, it's worth thinking about. Next episode is going to be a blast. Take care of yourselves. You have no other life.